Welcome to Florida History Space Race. In this Let's Play, we'll walk through how this classroom simulation works and how your students can explore Florida's past by stepping into the role of city planners during the height of the U.S. space race. Space Race is an interactive role-play game where students form teams and take charge of building and managing a growing city on Florida's Space Coast. Their goal? Strategically develop infrastructure, attract new residents and workers, and support the rapid growth sparked by America's race to space. The game runs from 1958 to 1990, following real Florida history. Students respond to rocket launches, economic shifts, tourism booms, and unexpected challenges, making decisions each year that shape how their city grows and thrives. Let's take a look at how it all works. To begin, each student is assigned to one of the four major cities on the Space Coast: Titusville, Cocoa, Merritt Island, or Cape Canaveral. They are then given a city leadership role within that city: city planner, business director, workforce coordinator, budget manager. With one student per role per city, this game accommodates 16 students. If you have more, you can either duplicate a city or have students buddy up on a role. Since the students in each city are working cooperatively, it sometimes becomes a game played by committee anyway, so having an extra student or two shouldn't detract from their gameplay. Each team starts with a city overview sheet and a blank map of the four cities. This is where they'll place their residential zones, tourism zones, commercial zones, and more as the game progresses. Their city overview sheet gives a brief description of that city's general role in supporting the space industry, a strategy tip for playing the game, a special building that is unique to that city, a starting population, and the zones that existed in each city before the start of the game. The first action that teams will need to do is place their starting zones. They can be placed anywhere within their city limits, designated by the bold gray lines on the map grid. I'm going to be playing Cape Canaveral for this Let's Play. That means that my team needs to place one residential zone, one commercial zone, and one infrastructure zone. The City Development Tracker tells students what color each zone is represented by and how they support the city. So I need one residential zone, which will be red and support 1,000 population, which is perfect since that's how many people are living in my city at the start of the game. I also have one commercial zone, which is blue. Commercial zones also generate income for the city. If I look at the City Development Tracker, I see that if I place the residential and commercial zone adjacent to each other, my city earns an extra $500,000 each turn. I want that extra money, so I'm going to make sure that happens. I also need to put one infrastructure zone. These are gray and can provide all the utilities and infrastructure needed for four zones. Supported zones don't have to be adjacent or right next to the infrastructure zone, but they do need to be connected with roads. If they aren't touching the zone or connected with roads, then they are considered unsupported and do not provide anything to the city. Since I don't have any roads to place in this setup round, I'm going to put the infrastructure zone right next to my residential zone. Now I need to show all of this on my City Development Tracker. The table on the left helps me to track how many zones I have constructed. The table on the right helps me to keep track of the zone bonuses I've made. Zone bonuses are benefits that come from strategic building. Since I put my residential and commercial zones next to each other, I get a bonus from that. The bottom section of the City Development Tracker is civic costs. These are expenses that represent maintenance and aging systems. If you want to simplify the game for your students, then you can play without the zone bonuses and civic costs. Another optional but strongly recommended preparation is to print a poster-sized map that teams can update at the end of each turn. This lets other teams see how the space program is affecting other cities. And now, your cities are ready to jump into history. Each round represents an important year in the development of the space program in Florida. You'll start by reading the Space Coast Sentinel for the year. For this Let's Play, we'll start in round 3, 1965. This is all about the Gemini missions, expansions in Kennedy Space Center, and the construction of new causeways. There is also a table at the end of each newspaper that tells each city how many residents now live in their city, how many tourists are visiting, and how many jobs NASA needs fulfilled. Each Space Coast Sentinel also has a discussion guide. You can use all of the included discussion questions, pick and choose your favorites, or even use some of them as a short response question. Now that the scene has been set, it's time to roll a random event. These events throw curveballs at the teams. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not. They'll need to make decisions in response to the scenario. For this Let's Play, I've rolled a 3, which means Highway 1 has been expanded, so I'll get to place one road in my city for free this turn. Now it's time for teams to strategize. Their city development tracker will help them determine what their budget is for each round. In round 1, 1958, all teams start with $3 million plus any zone bonuses from their initial zone placement. At this point in round 3, it looks like we have $6 million to work with this turn. $500,000 for each pair of residential zones. I have 3 zones but only 1 pair. I met NASA's job quota, so $1 million from that. I have 1 commercial zone, which gives me $500,000, and my zone bonuses from the residential and commercial zones being next to each other gives me another $1 million. According to the Space Coast Sentinel, I need to house 4,420 residents. I currently have enough for 3,000, so that's an extra 1,420 people. I also need to accommodate 8,797 tourists, and right now I can handle 5,000, so that's an extra 3,797 tourists. I have a workforce capacity of 250, but I need to meet 488, which means another 238 jobs. I'm really tight on money this turn, which means I'm going to really need to use my zone bonuses to get as much extra as I can. As the budget manager, I know that the number of zones I need to build is going to exceed the capacity of our current zones. I have 2 standard infrastructure zones, which means I can support 8 other zones. I already have 7, so I want to upgrade the 2 infrastructure zones that I already have so that I can support 16 zones total. However, after some discussion and looking at the budget, I don't think we can afford to upgrade both. As the city planner, I know that upgrading my existing residential zones to high-density housing is going to be more cost-effective than building new zones. Since I have 2 zones that meet the requirement of being next to infrastructure zones, I'm going to upgrade those. I'm also going to put our free road segment on the map. I really want to build more roads, but I need to wait and see what's left in the budget. As the business director, I know that funds are tight. I need more money. I know that if I upgrade my commercial zone to a mixed-use district, I can get more money and I can reach the capacity for the tourists that are coming. As the workforce coordinator, I am not sure if I can meet the quota this turn. I know I can build 1 upgraded education zone next to my infrastructure zone to add 125 jobs. But even if I build another upgraded education zone, I'm still going to be short 13 jobs. At this point, it becomes a discussion of opportunity cost. I could build the education zone and still be short, but maybe get closer for next turn. I could use the money to build the roads that I'm going to need to support more buildings. I could upgrade the tourism zone to generate more money. I'm going to build a road segment and upgrade the tourism zone. Hopefully the extra money will make up for the missing NASA funding that I'm not going to have in my budget next turn. Now, I need to update my city tracker with the new zones, bonuses, and civic costs. I have 1 standard residential zone and 2 high-density zones. I upgraded both the tourism and commercial zones to mixed use. I built another upgraded education zone, and I upgraded 1 of my infrastructure zones. Since the mixed-use zones count as both tourism and commercial, I get to mark 2 more residential plus commercial bonuses, and 2 more residential plus tourism bonuses. I get 2 commercial plus education bonuses, and 1 education plus infrastructure bonus. In the civic costs, I built a new education zone, which adds to the education saturation and my urban management count. I also built 2 new roads, adding to my road congestion. Each round continues the same pattern until you reach the end of the game. There is an endgame discussion guide that will help students examine their choices in the overall historical context of Florida's growing space industry. Florida History Space Race is built to meet key Florida history, geography, and economic standards, but more importantly, it gets students thinking critically, collaborating as teams, and connecting history to real-world decisions. Everything is ready to print, easy to run, and built for classrooms just like yours. Thanks for watching. Ready to launch your own city into the space race?